I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Have you ever had that thought? Maybe you've said it about your work, your relationship, the way you're taking care of everybody. Or maybe it's harder to define than that. Nothing is necessarily wrong. You can still function, you're still getting things done, you're still showing up, but somewhere inside you, you know, I don't want to keep living like this. We often think or believe that if we're going to say that out loud, we need to know what comes next. Okay, so what are you going to do? What's the plan? What are you going to change? But sometimes you don't know. Sometimes the most truthful thing you can say is simply, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's a complete sentence. I think this is especially important for women in midlife because sometimes we reach a point where we know very clearly what we don't want, but we haven't figured out what we want instead. And that can feel uncomfortable. We think we're supposed to have a vision, a goal, a new direction, but clarity doesn't always arrive as, I know exactly what I want. Sometimes clarity arrives as, I know this isn't it. That's still clarity. Maybe you don't want to wake up exhausted anymore. Maybe you don't want to be the person everybody just automatically calls when something goes wrong. Maybe you don't want to spend your evenings replaying conversations. Maybe you don't want to constantly worry about what might happen next. Maybe you don't want to keep saying yes when something inside you is saying no. Or maybe you're looking at your life and thinking, I don't want another 5 years to feel like the last 5. There's something I see in women over and over again. We confuse our ability to handle something with our obligation to continue handling it. You can keep going. You've proven that. You can function when you're tired. You can solve problems. You can take care of everybody. You can push through. You can keep the peace. You can figure it out. You can say, I'm fine. But here's the question. Just because you can keep doing it, do you want to? Because those are two different questions. Sometimes being capable actually keeps us in situations longer than we want to be there. We tell ourselves, well, I can handle this. But perhaps, can I handle this isn't the question anymore. Maybe the question is, do I want to continue living this way? This is where something that I talk about in my work comes in. I call it bracing. Bracing isn't necessarily falling apart. In fact, that's why it can be so difficult to recognize. You might look completely calm on the outside, but internally you're anticipating, preparing, constantly overthinking, holding tension in your body, replaying conversations, trying to stay one step ahead of everything. You may have become so used to, so accustomed to functioning this way that it just feels like your personality. You say to yourself, I'm an overthinker. I'm just a worrier. It's just the way I am. But sometimes what we've called our personality is actually a pattern we've practiced for a very long time. And eventually, something inside us gets tired. Not necessarily tired of our life, tired of the way we've been experiencing our life. That's an important distinction. So what do you do when you realize, I don't want to do this anymore? I wouldn't immediately rush to fix your entire life. Before you change anything, Notice. What exactly don't you want anymore? That's the question. What is the this? Maybe you don't want to keep being, available to everybody all the time. Maybe you don't want to keep abandoning what you need because somebody else might need something. Maybe you don't want to live with constant urgency. Maybe you don't want to treat exhaustion as proof that you're doing enough. Maybe you don't want to spend your life comparing or preparing or overthinking or wondering what could go wrong instead of experiencing what's happening right now. Don't judge your answer. Just notice it. Because before we can decide what needs to change, we have to become willing to see what is actually happening. Sometimes people think that you hire a coach like myself because you already know exactly what you want. You've got the goal. You've got the vision. You just need somebody to help you get there. Sometimes that is true, but that's not always where coaching begins. Sometimes a woman comes to coaching knowing only something about the way I'm living isn't working for me anymore. She doesn't have to arrive with the answer. Part of the work is creating enough space to actually hear herself again, to notice what's become normal, to recognize where she's bracing, to question what she's been tolerating, to look and to notice what's become normal, to recognize where she's bracing, to question what she's been tolerating, and to begin making different choices. That's the movement I care deeply about in my work, from bracing to steadiness. And steadiness doesn't mean creating a perfect stress-free life. It means learning how to experience your life without constantly preparing yourself against it. And actually, this question is part of something I'm very curious about right now. I'm conducting what I'm calling the 100 Women Study. I'm asking 100 women between the ages of 40 and 55 about what they're experiencing in this season of life, what they're carrying, what they're struggling with, what they want to feel different, and what they wish they had more support with. Because I don't want to assume that I know what most women need. I want to hear it from women themselves. So if you are a woman between 40 and 55, I'd really love for you to participate. It's completely anonymous, and I've put the link to the survey in the description below. Your answers will help me better understand what women are actually experiencing, and to really ultimately help shape the work, the conversations, and resources I create for women in this season of life. So if something in you is saying, I don't want to do this anymore, don't dismiss it. You don't need to know what comes next. You don't need a 5-year plan. You don't need to reinvent your entire life. Start smaller. Ask yourself, what is the this that I don't want to keep doing? And then maybe ask, what would I like to experience instead? You don't have to have the whole answer today. Sometimes change begins much more quietly than we expect. Sometimes it begins with one honest sentence. I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe that's enough for today. If you like this type of content, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.